We start this hour with the opioid epidemic.
That word, opioid, is now a staple of nightly newscasts, and the reports typically include images of prescription bottles and pills, implying that legal medications are responsible for that oft-cited number, 64,000 drug-related deaths per year, an epidemic, a crisis. Journalists dutifully and incorrectly recite that same misleading number. Pain expert Dr. Michael Shatman conducted his own survey during one 24-hour network news cycle.
And I put in one word, opioid. I got 75 stories. And every story had some combination of the words epidemic, overdose, abuse, death.
Dr. Shatman, an internationally known pain authority, has spent much of his life getting patients off opioids. He cautions against their use, except as a last resort, but says the numbers used to generate anti-opioid hysteria are both exaggerated and distorted on purpose. In a recent paper, Shatman wrote that the more conservative number, 16,000 overdose deaths attributed to legal prescriptions, is still a massive exaggeration. The most current, most accurate health statistics in the country are from New Hampshire, among the deadliest opioid battlegrounds in North America.
80% of the opioid deaths were due to, we'll say, non-pharmaceutical fentanyl. Because it is an analog of fentanyl, which is a prescription drug, it goes down as a prescription opioid death.
New figures from New Hampshire show some 93% of drug overdoses were caused by either fentanyl or heroin or both. Across the country, the states with the most overdoses have seen huge increases in illicit fentanyl. Nationally, fentanyl deaths jumped 540% in a 3-year period. In western states, the illicit opiate of choice is still heroin, which is cheap, plentiful, and far more powerful than in years past.
Illicit fentanyl and heroin are the drivers of overdose today. Those are illicit opioids.
Social scientist Dr. Steven Ziegler says it makes zero sense for doctors to essentially punish and abandon chronic pain patients when more than 90% of opioid deaths are the result of addicts taking street drugs.
We're focusing on prescribers for a problem that is significantly being driven by an illicit market. So it's almost like we're arresting the wrong person. And when you arrest the wrong person, that means the real suspects are still out there in the loose causing harm.
Lives are being lost in record numbers.
Nevada has seen a similar overheated reaction. An opioid task force was formed to lobby the legislature. New, stricter standards are being imposed on doctors because of what's described here as an opioid epidemic. The state's own numbers, however, show opioid prescriptions and overdoses have declined every year since 2011, except in one category, heroin deaths. Drill down into the actual case files as reported by the Clark County coroner, and it's even more apparent nearly all of the deaths involve multiple substances, including heroin, methadone, methamphetamine, cocaine, and alcohol. And many of the dead also had serious underlying medical conditions, but anyone who has a trace of an opioid in their systems is counted as an opioid death.
A study came out just this year looking at the toxicology of people who died of supposed prescription opioid deaths. The average number of substances found in the system, including alcohol, amphetamines, cocaine, tranquilizers, generally benzodiazepines, was 6. We're not talking about 16,000 prescription opioid deaths. We're talking more about 1,600.